Welcome back to this discussion, and if you're joining us, we're just looking at health and nutrition, especially in this festive season, and some of the complications that arise from bad nutrition and malnutrition. And before the break, Dr. Shabani was just painting for us the picture about obesity and childhood obesity specifically, and the complications that come with it, and that from self-esteem on the children who are affected, arthritis and other array of diseases, including cancer. And Gladys, you had a comment on what Daktari was saying, and my question also to you as the head of nutrition and dietetics, what are we doing about this?
Okay, thank you. The comment I had is that the obesity does not just occur to mothers who are obese. There are mothers who are okay, but they give birth to babies who are obese because during pregnancy, they form habits of eating foods which are not the right foods. That's foods that are high in fat and the carbohydrates. And actually, the obesity is on the increase in the urban areas. If you look at the Kenya Demographic Health Survey, the other rural areas may be okay, and when you look at childhood obesity, it's like on the decrease because of exclusive breastfeeding, which is on the increase. And that brings me now to the point of what we are doing as ministry. We understand that issues of obesity occur from even the time the child is in the womb. So we are looking at we're calling the first 1,000 days of the child's life, which are very critical. That means during pregnancy, a mother should be able to consume the right foods in the right amounts for her to be able to give birth to a healthy baby. And then breastfeeding remains the best option for the baby. So when we have mothers introducing cow's milk, the cow's milk has high fat, and that now starts bringing in the obesity. And that used to happen, and now it's on the decrease because we are promoting breastfeeding. Breastfeeding now has increased from 32% and doubled almost to 61%, which is what we are proud of as a country, and it's actually globally recognized. So if breastfeeding continues, then we are able to have babies who are born and obesity will start decreasing. But the issue of complementary feeding is what is now a problem. We've noticed that the mothers or parents or caregivers are not giving children the right types of foods after the 6 months. Now, the foods that you introduce to the baby after exclusive breastfeeding.
When they start weaning the baby.
Yes. So we are making a mistake of introducing our children to high sugars, that you have milk and you add sugar into it and other things. We're also making a mistake to add in a lot of fat. So this is the area where we are now, we've come up with guidelines. We are starting from the hospital and ensuring that when the mother gives birth, they're given information on breastfeeding. And the breastfeeding is promoted right from the hospital, that the baby is not separated from the mother to be given anything else. So they have to stay with the mother and receive the mother's milk. In special circumstances, then care is given by the professionals to the baby, and we're even introducing milk banking, human milk banking, where a mother expresses milk and it's kept somewhere, and a baby whose mother is not able to breastfeed can be given and the baby survives. And
this used to actually take place back in the day when a mother could not breastfeed, another mother could breastfeed on behalf of the other mother. So is this what we are reintroducing? We are reintroducing, but now in a better way, because of the HIV and other diseases that we are not sure of. So when you do that expressing of milk for human milk banking, there is a process that the milk has to be checked thoroughly before it's stored, and the issues of quality have to be in it. But we are at the phase where we are trying to see whether it can work, piloting. Okay. So one other thing we are doing is what we do in adulthood
starts in childhood. So we want to introduce school nutrition, and we have a school meals and nutrition strategy that we've developed with the Ministry of Education, even signed by Ministry of Agriculture, so that our children are receiving nutritious meals in schools, and we're hoping that counties can start the school meals programs, because there you are able now to standardize the way the children eat, and then they form good habits. The other thing is that we are including this nutrition in the school curriculum in a better way, so that at every stage, children are able to get information on how to eat well, these issues of portions. They learn about them early, and then they practice in school when they have the school meals. So this then will lead to a culture where people know how they're supposed to eat, and they're linking it to their health, instead of waiting until people make the mistakes and we have to keep correcting them. The other thing is, when you talk about obesity, we also tend just to focus on the amounts, but forget that the micronutrients are required for the body to utilize those, the carbohydrates. So we are ensuring that the nutrients are returned to the flour that is milled by our millers. And so we've come up with a standard for food fortification, and we have a logo that we are using, and you now see it in packets of the flours that are coming from, especially the large millers. And we're trying to work with them.
Let me take that point to say we shall be showing you what that logo of food fortification looks like, so that when you go out to shop, when you go out to buy flour, you can actually look at that particular logo so that you're able to identify which food has actually been fortified. So we shall be showing you that logo shortly. Continue, Gladys.
Yeah. So when we started the food fortification, it's like we're just focusing on the micronutrients that are of concern. That is iron and zinc and vitamin A. But when you talk about obesity, that also comes in, because when you are eating foods that are processed and the B vitamins are removed, then you're not able to utilize them in the body. The B vitamins are required for the carbohydrates to be used for energy. So maybe a simple example, when you have a porridge that is made of wholemeal, you'll see it fermenting. And that is what happens actually when you take it into your body. And that is what now makes you have energy, using the simplest illustration. So if we are not having nutrients in the foods when they are processed, then when we consume them, we end up just, you're not able to utilize them. They don't give even energy to exercise. And that is an area that we are dealing with. So
is flour the only food that is fortified?
No. I've used the flour because of the issues of obesity and the micronutrients that are required. But we now have our oil with vitamin A. And vitamin A is a micronutrient of concern. But we have improved because we've been having supplementation going on in our health facilities. And now we have added it to oil, given that vitamin A is a fat-soluble vitamin. And all our companies are now fortifying. So they're also using the logo. The other thing is we've had iodine deficiency in the past. We used to have goiter. And we've reduced that from 21% in the 70s to less than 6% as we speak, because of salt iodization. We had to add iodine in our salt so that every Kenyan can consume it. And when you talk of fortification, it's foods that are consumed in every household. So when you go to every household, you'll find flour, you find oil, and there's salt. We're thinking of sugar, but because of the other aspect, though Mumias Sugar started it, adding vitamin A, we've not really pushed for that because already our oils have the vitamin A.
Okay.
So the other programs we have, healthy diets and lifestyle, is what we have guidelines now. We've also analyzed our foods to understand what nutrients they have, one area that maybe people may forget about, the food composition tables are the ones that help the nutritionist understand what is in beans, what is in the various foods that we have. Okay. So we've analyzed our Kenyan foods. We realized that the foods may be different in different countries and with different soils. Okay. So we have that already in place. And so we are creating awareness through our health facilities and also continuing to come up with guidelines and capacity building.
Okay. Yeah. And you mentioned something that I want Daktari to address about some mothers or some families can still get children who are normal, let me say normal, and then later on they develop obesity, because not all of them will be because it was before birth or during pregnancy. And is this primarily because of the foods that they are exposed to when they start weaning only, or is it also now adopting different lifestyle and eating different kind of foods as they grow up?
So actually the irony about both overnutrition and undernutrition in the early childhood is that it predisposes you to obesity. It's been shown that children who are born with malnutrition, when later on in life are exposed to good excess nutrition from the foods they eat, they tend to become obese. So in science, they call it the thrifty gene. And maybe that's something that human beings have, that if you're not, it's an evolutionary thing to make you survive as a species, that for you to survive, you tend to store if you had adversity in the past and now you're exposed to excess. So children who are actually born underweight, when later on they're exposed to a lot of food, tend to become obese. And of course, as I said earlier, children who are born obese tend to carry on to become obese in adulthood. But obesity is also much more to do with their lifestyle. And although you can be born with a certain risk, if you obey the rules that we've talked about and live healthily and look at your portions, you'll not become obese. It's like if you go to a room and there's a switch, for you to have light, you have to switch on the switch. Now, the switch is the genes or the risk that you had when you were a child, but for you to be obese as an adult, you have to switch on the switch. So a lot like what you're talking about today, that changing the way we think about the way we eat our food, and to look at food not as something to give us comfort in everything, to think of food primarily for what it is for. It is an energy source. It is not something to make us happy. It's not something to reduce our sorrows. And sometimes we also need to change the myths that we sometimes grow up with. We always tell our children, you must finish that food, and you've put a lot of food there. So you always grow up knowing that if my plate is filled, I must finish, because it is good manners. We must go for second helpings. We don't throw away food. But we need to change this and say, cook little, cook what you actually need, so that even if you tell your children not to throw away food, you've actually given them enough.
Belinda, Daktari has mentioned about the switch and later developing obesity. Can it be reversed?
Now, from my point of view and what I have seen, when it comes to obesity, and especially looking at what Gladys had touched on, where we are looking at breastfeeding. Now, if we try and prevent disease in a certain way, meaning from the time that mother gets the baby, then we encourage you to breastfeed exclusively for 6 months, which is possible, proven, that we teach the mothers they can store their milk right after having the baby. You express and store, freeze the milk and all that. Then at 6 months, at the onset of 6 months, when the baby turns exactly 6 months, what I do is usually we encourage you to come like 2 weeks prior to the 6 months. So we teach you what to add into your child's diet other than the breast milk. Now, Daktari, when you use the term weaning, most people will take it like, now we have to take off the breast. So the weaning word is never had in nutrition. we changed it. We took it off, and it's not part of our vocabulary anymore, because we realize when you tell them you have to wean, then they take off the breast. Because now you told me 6 months, I am done with the breastfeeding, it's forgotten. So we introduced the complementary foods. So the complementary foods is introducing other foods other than the breast milk that the child's demands. They have to meet the child's demands. So you see, at that particular point where we're going to introduce the foods, what happens? There's this notion that is going around. A big baby is a healthy baby. And all mothers from the clinic, amewe ngapi? What is the weight? You know, we are so engrossed with the weight, such that if your child gained maybe 0.5 grams, you're so upset. There's a problem at home. I need to find out what my house girl, maybe she's eating the food or something like that. But for us, we want to see that curve on the normal side, the growth curve, the growth chart. It has to be on the normal side, meaning that this child is not losing weight, or is not stagnating, or is not getting stunted. Now, at that point, where we're introducing this food is where now there's too much blunder now. This is what happens. We will teach you and we tell you from 6 months, we are going to introduce all the food groups, meaning we are going to introduce the starch, the vegetables, we are going to do the proteins, we are going to put the oil in the food, we are going to add salt into the food. So guess what happens? And especially at that part where we are practicing the exclusive breastfeeding, the mother will come and tell you, I'm breastfeeding. But if you look at the weight of that child, it escalates, right? It's above what I expect. Then, what mothers do is, because they have this thing of a big baby, they feed the babies potatoes. You know, it's potatoes, it's anything. You feed everything and anything. And then, for us, it's always very easy. We simply look at the skin, we'll tell. What are you feeding the baby? I don't know, it's not I'm breastfeeding, but you can see from the skin. If the baby will come with constipation, a child who is breastfed does not get constipation. So that is how now obesity starts to creep in. So you're giving an excess. And remember, this baby, there's no activity that they do other than sleep, eat. So what happens? They gain the weight. So it is from childhood into young adulthood. Then we have an obesity. Again, adolescent who is an obese. And then at some point when you're an adolescent, you realize this is not how I'm supposed to look. Everyone in class looks different, so you want to lose the weight. So other things come in where you're trying to lose the weight. Now, when all these things, and in this part where you need to reverse the obesity, and not only in the young adults and even for us, where we need to reverse the issues of obesity, what are you going to put in place that will ensure that you're doing the right thing, that will not make you sick, that will not damage your organs, that is sustainable? What is this thing that you're going to do? So this is the Kenya of today. We want to reverse obesity, so we have the detox plans. That one is number 1. Number 2, we want to work out an entire day and not eat. Number 3, you're doing nothing about it completely, so you still remain on the same curve, and so you'll be on a cycle and all that. So for us to reverse obesity, it means that the education has to be put in place. Number 1, the counseling and the education has to be put in place. You do not wake up, you're an obese, and say, this is what I'm going to do, or this is a book on the internet, or this is one thing that I read in the internet. And you see, the internet also carries a lot of things. Drink this and lose weight. You know, lose your belly in. Those things don't work. So to reverse it means that you're coming to sit down with a nutritionist or a dietitian, and we are not forgetting the fitness part. It cannot work alone. You will eat the right amounts of food. We will calculate how much you need, and depending on the type of activity that you do or the work that you do. And then out of that, we come up with a schedule and tell you, this is the much you need to lose, the calories that you need to lose within a certain time, because that is what you already accrued. And at the same time, we still need it to be healthy. Meaning, we are not, and you see, usually when people start, they become lethargic because of withdrawing starch. You're told, oh, you want to lose weight, do away with your starch. Do not eat starch after 3 p.m. Your body needs the starch. That is where you get your energy from. So in the process of reversing, we must know that you must eat all the food groups. You must have the physical activity has to come, even if it's as simple as walking. It has to be there. And the discipline has to be there. And then when it comes now to the reversing part of it, how long are you going to take? If I wanted, and you see, most people will have quick fix. So what do? Can I take a pill, lose the weight? You have to be very careful with what is out here in the market. People are packaging everything so well, and they have fat burners, and these fat burners will make you lose 10, 20 kilos in a month. Doctor, will agree with you. You know what happens?
Yeah.
You cannot lose weight drastically unless you are sick in hospital, and we said this is what has made you lose all this weight. 10% to 30% of the body weight was lost because of an illness, and we have to figure out what it is.
Okay.
But this thing of trying to revise weight loss by taking a pill, or you're told this is the diet that will make you lose that weight, it is not practical, because what you're going to do, it's going to be a vicious cycle. And you go around, you spend money, you lose the weight, you triple the weight, and it goes round and round.
So then my question as a final comment to each and every one of you is, we have discussed good nutrition and whatnot, and we know the habit of people this festive season is to indulge. What should people do so as to still enjoy the holiday and still eat healthy? I'll start with you, Gladys.
Yeah, during the holidays, I know people are going to the fast foods and hotels where there is buffet. The rule will help them so that they serve the amounts they require. In a buffet, you're always tempted. And then when you're choosing, it's good to know how much fat is in here, how much sugar is in here. So anything with a lot of sugar, then be very careful.
Okay.
Take small portions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Daktari?
Yes, and as a final comment, I'll urge everyone to think of obesity as a disease. And it's something that you need to get in touch, be able to know whether you're obese or not. So get assessed. I think it's good that when you come to the end of the year, before you jump to the new year, that you go to a health practitioner and say, can I get my assessment for obesity? Because once you start that, you start a discussion on how you're going to change that. We've already discussed about food and about relevant exercise. It's very important that you also get assessed by doctors to see what will be the right goal for you for your weight loss, and what will be the right level of exercise you need to do for your weight loss. And in general, use the portions we've talked about. Remember your fists, remember your fingers, remember your palms.
Okay. Belinda, just briefly, what should people do to still enjoy the holiday and keep healthy?
I think what is important for us, and especially now that our house managers will be away, as the women in the house, we need to focus more into our kitchens. We can still have the same foods which are prepared out there. If I want my pizza, I can still cook it in the most healthiest way. So most important is for us, let's learn the recipes. Let's cook the foods at home, because you'll know exactly what you've put in it. Because at this point, even if you're going to do the fast foods out there, everything, the demand is high. Everything is done hurriedly. Nobody will check if the food was even clean, the hygienic conditions of the food and all that. So you'll end up with so many things coming out of it, and you won't even enjoy your holiday. So most important is the portions have to be there, the physical activity has to be there, and the mindful eating has to be there. What people are trying to say, I'm practicing clean eating. It's not only for the adults, it has to be done also for the children.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this very enlightening discussion on nutrition. And that's it for us this evening. We are discussing nutrition and health in this festive season. We had Belinda Otieno, who is a nutritionist and a dietitian. We had Dr. Jacob Shabani, who is a consultant family physician. We had Gladys Mugambi, who is the head of Nutrition and Dietetics Unit at the Ministry of Health. And from the ladies and gentlemen this evening, they've said you cook at home, eat for health and not for the taste. And that's where I leave you this evening. Join me next Saturday as we wrap up the year. We take a look and a stock at the health sector in 2017, what lessons we learned from it. From me, Dr. Mercy Korir, I wish you a very good evening and a blessed week ahead.